Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we deliver the shortcut to strategic clarity. Today we're tackling, I think, the central paradox of modern leadership.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Something like 97% of senior leaders agree that strategic thinking is the single most important behavior for success.
Yeah.
And yet if you look at your calendar, it's just a chaotic game of Tetris.
It's terrifying. It's crammed with operational stuff, endless email chains, all those low-leverage distractions.
Exactly. The urgent is constantly winning the battle against the important.
It is. And leaders are they're fundamentally overwhelmed. There's too much complexity, too much information, and that really leads to one of two outcomes.
Okay.
Either you delay the big, smart decisions until it's way too late, or, and this might be worse, you make them impulsively, based on gut instinct or incomplete data, just because you don't have the bandwidth to filter all the noise.
So our mission for you today is to cut right through that noise. This deep dive is really about redefining what it means to lead in the age of AI. We're going to show you how to start making decisions that are faster, smarter, and deeply aligned with your long-term vision, all without demanding more hours from your life.
We've synthesized a lot of sources that really define a total paradigm shift here.
Yeah.
This is about moving AI from, the technical back room.
Something you delegate.
Right, something you hand off to your IT team. You're moving it into the strategic boardroom. The whole goal is to leverage AI not as a threat, but as a dedicated strategic thought partner.
Okay, so we're looking at the mindset shift, the practical application, and then the tactical execution to really become an AI-driven leader.
Exactly.
Let's unpack this by starting with what feels like a massive wake-up call, the urgency of this whole conversation.
The velocity of change is staggering, and the clock is ticking. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, has been very clear on this.
What's he been saying?
He's expecting the world to be fundamentally different within the next 5 years.
5 years, not 10.
Not 10. And that window for leaders to really get educated on the strategic implications of AI, it's closing incredibly fast.
5 years is basically tomorrow in most business cycles. But hold on, the common response to something new and technical is just delegate it.
Right.
Why is it so non-negotiable that the senior leader, the CEO, the division head, has to grasp this themselves? Why can't I just hand it to the CIO?
Because strategy is leadership.
Yeah.
If you don't get how AI fundamentally changes market dynamics, consumer behavior, you become vulnerable. You become vulnerable to what we call the blockbuster blueprint for failure.
You delegate the understanding, you delegate the strategy. And Blockbuster, that's such a powerful cautionary tale. Back in 2000, they were making, what, $8.7 billion in revenue? They were the undisputed king.
I know, totally. And their CEO, John Antioco, he was given the opportunity to acquire this tiny, unprofitable DVD-by-mail startup, Netflix,
Right.
for just $50 million.
Which was what, 0.6% of their annual revenue? It was nothing, and he said no.
He said no. A truly catastrophic misstep. And it was driven entirely by internal bias. They were blinded by their own successful model. The foot traffic, the physical stores, and of course, the very lucrative late fees.
They just completely failed to see the growing demand for convenience. And they missed the potential of streaming technology.
Their cognitive failure was rooted in what you might call the tyranny of the successful past.
I like that.
They were just optimizing what was already working instead of adapting. Antioco, he tried to course correct later, but then the activist investor Carl Icahn took over the board.
And he was only obsessed with short-term returns.
That's it. Icahn canceled their digital platform, brought back the late fees.
He prioritized the immediate boost to the balance sheet over any kind of long-term strategic adaptation. It's the classic trap.
And by 2010, they were bankrupt. They literally ran enthusiastically in the wrong direction, straight into obsolescence.
Wow. The core lesson there really hits home. Leaders have to continually question their own biases, their own assumptions.
If you are confident in your strategy, but you refuse to let it be challenged, you risk, and I'm borrowing from entrepreneur Keith Cunningham here, you risk running enthusiastically in the wrong direction.
And Cunningham should know, right? He lost something like $100 million on his own ventures because of that unchecked confidence.
Ouch. Yeah. A painful realization. It just hammers home that even brilliant people can be blindsided by their own success.
So to avoid that fate, the mindset shift is straighting. It's fundamental. You have to stop asking, how do I solve this problem? And start asking,
how can AI help me solve this problem? It reframes the whole thing. AI isn't a threat. It's an amplifier of your human capability.
This sets up a new relationship.
A core, non-negotiable relationship. You, the human, are the thought leader. You provide the vision, the emotional intelligence, the ethical guardrails.
And AI becomes the thought partner.
Ready 247 to do the heavy cognitive lifting and, crucially, to challenge your thinking.
And this is where that partnership immediately helps with the leader's biggest source of overwhelm, which is just the flood of data.
Oh, absolutely. The problem isn't a lack of information. We are drowning in it.
Right.
IDC projected we will have 175 zettabytes of data by 2025. That number is, it's physically impossible for any human team to process that. And human leaders, we have cognitive biases like confirmation bias. We subconsciously look for data that confirms what we already believe.
So if AI is doing the heavy lifting, analyzing these huge data sets, finding patterns in seconds, what does that actually look like? Is it just faster spreadsheets?
It means mitigating catastrophic risk.
Yeah.
Like the huge losses we just talked about. You can literally prompt AI to be a challenger to your own strategy.
How would you do that?
Imagine this prompt. Attached is our 5-year strategic plan. You are my AI thought partner. I want you to act as a skeptic and ask me a series of probing questions, one at a time, to challenge my deepest biases and assumptions in this plan.
Wow. That immediately strengthens your strategy because you're finding the blind spots before you even walk into the boardroom. That is revolutionary.
And then, moving beyond just filtering data, AI helps solve that, doing more with less paradox.
Right.
It lets you reallocate human effort away from the mundane, low-value stuff to the high-impact strategic work that actually requires creativity and human connection.
And we have hard data on this. There's a Boston Consulting Group and Harvard study that found consultants using AI saw a staggering 40% increase in work quality.
A 40% increase. And they completed tasks 25% faster and handled 12.2 times more tasks.
That kind of leverage is just transformative. But doesn't it raise an important question? A productivity spike like that could make people feel completely obsolete.
It could.
How do you sell that change without triggering fear and resistance?
Well, that's where you, as the thought leader, come in. You frame AI not as a replacement, but as an enhancement. It frees up your best people to focus on the 20% of their job that drives 80% of the results.
You redefine the role. It's about creative problem solving now, not just task completion.
No. Exactly. And finally, AI helps solve that perpetual struggle of balancing short-term pressures with the long-term vision, the tyranny of the quarterly earnings report.
That's what killed Blockbuster.
It is. AI lets you conduct rapid, complex scenario planning. You can ask it to model what happens to your stock price if you invest 15% more in R&D versus cutting costs by 5% immediately. It helps you make sure your short-term wins are actually moving you toward your long-term goals.
So if AI is this powerful thought partner, we have to know how to talk to it.
Right. And the sources are very clear. The quality of the output you get is determined entirely by the quality of your communication, your prompt.
So mastering prompt construction is the new foundational skill for any AI-driven leader. And you need to include 3 essential ingredients for good results.
First, you have to describe the task clearly. Be really precise about the format, the length, the goal. Second, and this is vital, you must give context. AI has no idea about your company's history or its internal politics.
It lacks human context. You have to fill in those gaps.
You do. And third, maybe the most powerful ingredient is assigning a persona.
What do you mean?
You tell the AI to act as the skeptical CFO of a rival company, or act as a leading expert in supply chain logistics. This instantly focuses its analysis and lets you pressure test your ideas from every possible angle.
That challenger persona you mentioned earlier really shines here. It's like having an impartial devil's advocate on call.
It is. And it helps you find blind spots before you ever present to your human board.
But if I'm constantly challenging my own plan, isn't there a risk of analysis paralysis, that I just get bogged down and never execute?
It's the difference between being reactive and proactive. The goal isn't paralysis, it's efficiency. You find the vulnerabilities in private with your thought partner in seconds instead of having them exposed in public by your board months later.
Which is critical for high-stakes decisions. Poor stakeholder mapping alone can sink a huge project.
Right. And AI can actually enhance that whole process by doing the stakeholder mapping for you. It can identify the decision makers, the influencers, the early adopters, and then simulate their likely responses.
There was an incredible real-world example of this.
Yeah, a consumer packaged goods company was getting ready to pitch the CEO of Whole Foods. They used AI to research his public priorities, simulate his review of their presentation.
And it identified gaps in their pitch. Things like ethical sourcing and labor practices that they had sort of minimized.
They had. So the executive team used the simulation to build out those specific sections. And the AI was later shown to have predicted the board's most likely questions with 91% accuracy.
91%. That's not just speed. That is strategic foresight.
And speaking of speed, think about what this means for analysis and research. I mean, we're talking about 175 zettabytes of data. Our human ability to process that is it's obsolete. It takes the average person maybe 5 hours to read 100,000 tokens of text.
We should probably define what a token is for everyone. It's basically the unit of language AI models use.
Exactly. A token is roughly a word, sometimes a piece of punctuation. So 100,000 tokens is a big research document. 5 hours for a human. AI can process that in seconds.
There was that comparison with The Great Gatsby, right?
Yeah, Claude scanned the entire book, 72,000 tokens, and found a single specific change in just 22 seconds.
That is a staggering difference in capacity. Frank Iannella, the CIO of Heineken, he used AI for research and drafting and saved 30 to 40% of the time it took to write a company position paper.
And that time saving isn't just marginal, that's days, maybe weeks, freed up for higher impact work.
Okay, so a great strategy and a great thought partner only matter if you can actually execute the plan.
True.
This brings us to the mindset needed for execution, especially for a leader who feels trapped in that operational overwhelm. It requires discipline. It requires staying in the driver's seat.
The classic analogy here is the 1911 race to the South Pole. You had the Norwegian team led by Amundsen and the British team led by Scott.
And Scott's approach was to wait for perfect weather, for ideal conditions to travel.
Right. Amundsen, on the other hand, committed to traveling 20 miles every single day, regardless of blizzards or conditions. He was rigid in his commitment, but flexible in his tactics.
So Amundsen reached the pole a full month ahead and got back successfully. Scott let Mother Nature dictate his pace, and, well, it led to his team's demise.
Amundsen's lesson is that execution requires conscious choice and discipline, not reactive knee-jerk decisions.
And to get that momentum, to escape the chaos, leaders have to commit to the idea that 20% of their role drives 80% of their results.
If you really want to 10x your impact, you have to be ruthless about protecting that 20%, the high-value strategic thinking. And that means letting go of the time spent on the operational 80%.
That low-value 80% has to be streamlined, delegated, or just eliminated. This is where we can look at the method for process improvement championed by Elon Musk.
His 5-step method. It's brilliant because it forces you to challenge everything.
It starts with step 1. Question every requirement. Don't just accept that something is done a certain way.
Then the hardest part, step 2. Delete any part of the process. He tells his teams to try and strip away 80% of the steps. It's forced simplification.
And if you delete a step and the process still works, you didn't need it.
Exactly. Only then do you move to step 3. Simplify and optimize. Step 4, accelerate. And finally, step 5, automate.
But automation is the last step, not the first.
It's the last step. The Tesla design philosophy is the perfect example. Why does a car need a start button? Delete it. Why waste energy on traditional braking when you can use regenerative braking? They didn't automate a bad process. They eliminated the need for it entirely.
This liberation is so crucial because the value of human work is shifting. As AI handles those operational tasks, the leader's job becomes almost entirely about strategic thinking, creativity, and complex problem solving.
Which means the leader has to stop providing all the answers. The old industrial model, it rewarded compliance, giving the boss the right answer quickly. The AI-driven leader needs to shift to asking more, giving less. You have to create an environment where people feel safe to struggle, where they develop their own strategic thinking muscles.
That was a tremendous journey. We've really redefined leadership in the AI era. AI is the catalyst. It transforms your role from one of crushing operational overwhelm to one of strategic clarity.
Serving as that constant thought partner who challenges your biases and accelerates high-quality decision-making.
And the ultimate success story here isn't about the technology, is it? It's about leadership making strategic choices.
Think about the Domino's pizza turnaround. The change wasn't just the pizza tracker app. It was the leadership choosing to fault the core product, the pizza, first.
And then leveraging the technology second. Strategy first, technology second. If you embrace this shift, you're putting yourself on what we call the AI empowerment curve. You push past that initial friction and you build undeniable momentum.
And this brings us to our final provocative thought for you to chew on this week. The deepest fear that leaders face in the AI era isn't losing their job to technology.
It's losing their identity.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So many ambitious professionals mistake what you do, the task list, the busy work for who you are.
And embracing AI adoption, delegating those tasks to your thought partner, it forces you to clarify your core values and redefine who you can become as a leader, as a partner, as a parent.
If you resist this change, you really stunt your potential growth. But if you embrace it, if you embrace this AI-driven shift, you elevate your leadership and you embark on the profound journey of becoming the best, most strategically focused version of yourself.